Jeff, a lot of filmmakers complain about getting, well, for lack of a better word, I guess, screwed by distributors with hidden costs and different things. Can you talk about how this happens and what filmmakers should look out for?
Yeah, it's very real. I mean, a lot of filmmakers, the right word is screwed. They all of a sudden you get a statement and you owe them money because they've spent so much money on marketing and this kind of stuff, and you think like, where did that go? So listen, a lot of it's real. I spoke about marketing and how important it is, and you should tuck away a lot of money to market. So the distributor is marketing for you. Hopefully they're spending lots of money on your behalf to market your film to get it out there. You want them to do that. The only problem is sometimes they will spend in areas that benefit them and not you. I'll give you a great example, okay? Film markets. So they attend, most distributors attend, at least 5 or 6 major film markets a year, and it's expensive. Really, like, I don't know if you've ever been to Cannes or Berlin, you go there, hotel rooms are a fortune, especially they jack them up during those festivals and, those markets. They have to fly, and they fly first class sometimes, and they eat fancy meals and entertain a lot of people with expensive bottles of wine and this kind of thing. Now, that's good because hopefully they're making sales. But if they're not making sales, that cost is coming right back to you, and you're paying for that. And they disseminate that cost through all the films that they represent. And now the thing is, a lot of them charge a flat fee for markets plus, so it's a general market attendance fee plus direct expenses related. So here would be, so let's say you get charged, I don't know, $10,000 for them, your film gets charged $10,000 for them to attend Cannes, but then they take somebody out for dinner and basically talk about your film, supposedly only your film, and that dinner costs, $600. That comes, you get charged back. If they talked about 5 films, hopefully all of them got, but sometimes they charge the full $600 to all 5 films. That's when people talk about getting screwed, they don't even know how badly they're getting screwed. Like, that's stuff that's not even auditable. You can never, what are you going to relive that dinner? You're going to say, hey, like, and they don't even tabulate it that way. It's not like they say, oh, here's a dinner in Cannes between this person and him, which it's not like a lawyer who gives you a log, right? They say Cannes, market expense and ancillary expenses for your film only, another $4,500. You say, what was that? Well, we had to entertain people, we had to do this. You never know. And you never know if they charge every single film that. So chances are they're making more money off of that than they are off of selling your films. That's the screwing that people talk about. And it's very real. It happens a lot on a regular basis because it's so easy to do. It's so easy to get away with it. It's almost unauditable. That's the trust factor. So how do you prevent it? You put a cap on your expenses. You say in the contract, you say, you can't spend more than, say 5% of the revenue that you're generating unless you get sign off from me. So if you want to do an additional expense, say run an ad, do another market, do this, that, then I have to sign off and give approval. And distributors don't like that because they don't like to be accountable and sign off, but that's how you prevent it. It's one of the only ways to prevent it. And it's a pretty common thing to do. I wouldn't do a distribution deal without that because expenses can run wild.
But it's not in the boilerplate that they give.
No, of course not.
So, okay. So.
No, it's in the boilerplate that I give.
Okay.
Yeah, remember, I have the boilerplate.
Right.
I have in my files the independent producer boilerplate contract that they should use for distribution. And the distributors have the distributor boilerplate contract that they would use. And there's some major differences.
Sure.
All the terms are the same, but the way they're skewed, mine tend to skew more in favor of the producer.
Right.
And then you come to, but that's the classic screwing. And there's another classic. There's 2 other ones actually.
Oh, please.
Second one is reporting of revenues. Like, how would you ever know if a deal got done that didn't get reported? Let's say they sell your movie to a cable station in Greece. I mean, you don't even know the cable stations in Greece, let alone how much they sold it for and if the contract ever got negotiated or done or whatever. So unreported revenue sometimes happens. And, you know, distributors who watch this are going to say, no, we never do that. But they do. They do. It happens, unfortunately. And then there is what we call, the term is called cross-collateralization. And it is where you're taking either a pool of films or you're taking a pool of rights. This is where it gets, this is a concept that will make indie filmmakers' heads spin. It's not even complicated, but it's just so let's say you say to your distributor, we want you to sell, say, there's two ways it happens. 3 of our films, or we want you to sell 1 of our films in 15 different territories. So let's say that in the UK, film number 1, they make a great deal on it, right? But in the USSR, film number 2, they make a terrible deal, but they spent a lot of money in traveling there or whatever. So they take the revenue of one deal and cross it over with the costs of another deal. So the costs neutralize the revenue, meaning you get nothing and they get their costs paid by your revenue. So they're taking a pool. Now they can do that with shared rights, shared films, or sometimes they'll do it with a whole pool of films that you don't even own. It could be just a whole collection of other films. And they'll cross everything over and neutralize it all so that they make a bigger fee and you get stuck with all the costs, because they don't want to get stuck with the costs. They want all those costs disseminated through the system. And this is where it gets messy. Now, I have audited distributors before, like major distributors. Generally, it's almost a waste of time to audit the small guys. The public companies, those are the ones you audit. And it's messy. I mean, there are all kinds of things that I could tell you. I'll tell you one story. So I had a film. I'm not going to go into the details. I put it out. This one I used through a distributor for certain territories. I was self-distributing the film for major territories, but there were other territories that I don't deal with because they're too complicated, language issues, cultural issues. I mean, I just don't have the wherewithal to deal with everything. So I gave it to a distributor. They did some decent deals. I knew they did the deals because I was able by the internet, you can go on and see where they're playing and what the schedule is. So you can verify this stuff, you know? You can also phone the broadcasters and say, okay, when's it playing? What's going on? Blah, 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 da-da-da-da. So I knew the deals had been done. And they also had done some VOD, digital deals. And I saw that it was trending really well. There's some trending reports that you can look at. You can't get the sales, but you can see the trending, all right? So I had a pretty good idea that there were lots of sales. I get the first report back and it's zero revenue. And I say, guys, this is impossible. I know for a fact that you sold Australia. How do you know? Because I spoke to the Australian broadcaster and they told me they have your movie. I'm friends with them. I know for a fact, it's impossible that you don't have revenue. Let's check. They check the system. Oh, you're right. You know what? This deal got, it's called mapping. It got mapped into a different revenue stream. It went to another. I said, you guys are a public company. You can't, mapping errors? Okay, fine. I said, there's more. That's not enough. There's so much more going on. They said, no, there isn't, Jeff. I said, fine, I'm going to audit you. I audited them. You have to spend money. You have to get an auditor. You make appointments, public company. It's a big deal to do an audit. Very expensive. But, anyway, I found $200,000 in missing revenue on the first audit. The first audit, they danced around. Well, sorry, this, that, mistake here, mistake there. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of missing money. It's only a certain territory, right? So then I said, okay, fine. I'm going to do so then another 3 quarters passed, and I said, I'm going to do another audit to end the year. I go in, I find another $50,000. So I say, I believe that there's still some missing revenue here, and here's why I believe it. And I took them to arbitration because in my contract I couldn't sue them. It was built in that it was going to be arbitrated. It cost me a lot of money to arbitrate. They spent a ton of money on a big fancy lawyer, and it went to an arbitrator, and it took 6 months, and I thought it was going to be a slam dunk, but they out-lawyered me. And I'm a lawyer. And and I learned a really good lesson about legal proceedings, and it's got nothing to do with film reporting or film distribution. It's all about legal manipulation and how to game the system. And they're a big public company, and they out-lawyered me. And I know that I left a lot of money on the table, not to mention how much I spent on the arbitration. And you asked me before, is there any regrets that I have? I would have dealt with that one differently, but you don't know that until after the fact. Anyways, how many indie film producers? After that, I came home after that day, after the final judgment on the arbitration, I said to my wife, I'm sick to my stomach about this, but I'm way sicker about how many indie filmmakers have been screwed by this company probably for the last decade. Thousands. Thousands of films have probably lost hundreds, tens of millions of dollars have been left on the table because nobody can afford to do what I did, and I lost. That's what goes on. That goes on all the time, and it's a shame. And it would be great if somehow, the world could. I said, I'm going on a crusade. I said to my wife, this is it. I'm going on a crusade. I am going to go and I'm going to dig up everything from every public company, from every filmmaker, and I'm going to be the hero. And she said, just go to sleep. Tomorrow morning you wake up, you'll be a calmer. That crusade would be a lifetime thing for me, and it would cost $10 million in legal fees. Now, if I could put a fund together from all the filmmakers, to represent them, or if the filmmakers did have representation, then, in some type of protection agency or something like that who could represent them, that would be fantastic. But they don't. Indie filmmakers don't have any associations like that. They don't have any. To go it alone is impossible. It's costly and crazy, and you don't know what you're doing, and you can't do it. Maybe to go it as a group, but nobody's got any money. So, but tens of millions of dollars have been left on the table, hundreds of millions. I can't even fathom how much, just based on my own experience, how much has been screwed, how much indie filmmakers have walked away from, because they don't know. And even if they did know, it'd be hard to get it.
And with the collateralization of these films with the distributor, is that similar to CDOs? That what sunk the housing market in some sense? The collateralized debt obligations? No, it's not the same.
No,
okay.
No,
so they package these films and they sell them to these different territories.
Here, let me give you another example, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This really, really irked me. But again, you have to be able to dig into the weeds to get this example. So another distributor I was using is also Australia, happened to be. So they sold a package. So they're representing many, many, many films. Okay, I was one film in a package of probably say 25 that they sold to a broadcaster in Australia. I got the report. My number was $75 for a 5-year deal, broadcast deal on one of my best films. It was like some stupid number, literally less than $100. I phone him up and I say, what is this? It's a 5-year deal and you sold it for $75? Well, we did a package deal. You were one of a package. So we had to prorate the numbers. I said, prorate? How much? I'd like to see the prorating. Sorry, we don't share that because it's other privileged information for other films. So of course I did a little digging, only to find out that, the 10 main films that were sold, they owned. Not only did they distribute, they owned them. They were proprietary. So what they did is they took everybody else's films, pretty well gave them away for free in order to get the revenue for their films. That's a very common practice. And there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, there's lots you can do if you know about it. And you can contract that kind of thing also. But it's super, super tricky.
And you had a leg up in that you had a friend.
I knew. I knew the deal was there.
Right. So most people wouldn't be privy to that information. They wouldn't know
you wouldn't
where
even
to
know.
look.
First of all, well, you get reported. It was on the report, and there was a revenue number, $75 or some stupid number. So at least they reported something. The other example I gave is when they don't report anything. So you never even know that a deal was made.
Okay, right.
Yeah, no, there's two types. They don't report anything, so you can never even question it because you never even You don't know. What are you going to go phone every territory around the world and do research every week and say, hey, I heard you sold this to that? You don't know. They reported it, but it was so low, at least there's something you can question. And then it was a package deal. And there's not much you can do if you hadn't contracted against that, because that's their privilege to do that. I mean, they shouldn't. It's wrong, but it happens.
Is this the same type of stuff that's gone on in the music industry?
Music's not, I mean, you know, I know music, but I think music's even worse. Music is just, I mean, first of all, it's an older industry, and it was a bigger industry for a while, and it's just so easy to cheat and pirate music, and yeah, I think it's worse. It's a real problem with all intellectual property, software, anything like that, anything that's hard to, like, you know, that's hard to, well, I guess it's a problem with anybody who does dishonest business, right? I mean, you could have hard products too, and inventory, and, you know, sometimes it disappears and it was destroyed or returned or this or that. I mean, you know, that happens all over the place.
Sure. They call it shrinkage.
Shrinkage. That's exactly right. That's what it's called, shrinkage.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we should call it in the film industry, but there seems to be a lot of it. So that's part of, you know, hopefully knowing what you're doing and paying attention. But it's not easy.
Sure. And now a lot of things can be blamed on computer error. Before, maybe human error, but computer error.
Everything. That's exactly, it was called a mapping error. Mapping means that revenues flow in and then they get disseminated to each of the films. That's the map. And they claimed, because I was going to sue them after arbitration, but they claimed to the arbitrator that the mapping was wrong, and they showed, you know, and I said, guys, it's a real problem that a public company your size has mapping errors. Can you imagine if we started digging how many mapping errors? I mean, like, I'm a little tiny pebble in an ocean compared to what you guys do. I'm one little tiny independent film. It's really bad that you got mapping errors, and so many of them. And I just went digging and I found that, and that's like surface stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe I shouldn't be accusatory and say that it happened on purpose, but I am saying that.
And you have to pay for an arbitrator, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So you have to go to a list of...
Hold on. Mm-hmm. When you initiate arbitration, not only do you have to pay for my side, I have to pay for their side. That's the way arbitration works.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a pride thing, and, you know, it's just one of those stubborn, I just don't want to get taken advantage of. But the way the legal system works is, even if you win, you lose. You win the battle and lose the war, because, you know, even if you win the issue, it costs you twice as much to litigate it.
Sure.
So, such is life. But the light at the end of the tunnel is that movie still was very successful, and I was happy to have made it. And if I focus on the negatives, then I'll be miserable. So I try to focus on the positives, which is what most people do. But you know, it's good to at least know what you're doing, so at least you have a shot at getting it done properly.